Hong Kong, 1967. In the narrow, dimly lit hallways of a film studio, Bruce Lee, perhaps the greatest martial artist who ever lived, was about to face the most dangerous moment of his entire career. What the cameras captured that day wasn't just another movie scene or a carefully rehearsed choreography. It was something raw, something real. It was Bruce Lee pushed to the absolute limit of his existence. The footage stayed locked away in a vault for decades, protected by people who understood that this was not entertainment. It belonged to the territory where pride, fear, and survival cross paths without warning. What you're about to hear is a story that only a handful of people alive today can confirm. A tale born in whispers, passed from person to person. A story about a challenge that came from the shadows, about honor, reputation, and a fight that nearly destroyed everything Bruce Lee had built. If those cameras hadn't been rolling, this moment would have been lost forever in the dust of time. Some say it was the fight that transformed him. Others believe it was the exact instant he stopped being just a prodigy and became a legend. But one thing is certain. What happened on that humid summer afternoon in a Hong Kong studio remained hidden from the world for more than 30 years. This is that story. The year was 1967, and Bruce Lee stood at a crossroads. Years earlier, he had left Hong Kong for the United States, chasing a dream that seemed almost impossible: to break into Hollywood. As an Asian actor, he had already achieved what few others had. He trained some of the biggest names in the industry. He developed his own philosophy of combat, Jeet Kune Do, and tested it again and again in private demonstrations where his speed and precision left even experienced martial artists speechless. But Hollywood still wasn't ready for him. The success of the Green Hornet and his role as Kato were already behind him. The studios weren't offering new leading roles. Promises evaporated. Doors began closing. So Bruce returned to Hong Kong, back to the city where he had taken his first steps, where he had learned to fight in the streets, where his name still meant something. That's when Raymond Chow, a producer with a vision few others shared, saw what Hollywood had missed. He didn't see just an actor. He saw a force of nature. He saw the man who could forever redefine martial arts cinema. Raymond offered Bruce something America never had: the leading role. Golden Harvest Studio was preparing to launch a new kind of action film, faster, rawer, more real, and Bruce Lee would be at the center of it all. Success, however, always leaves a trail. Where there is success, envy is born. Where there is envy, challenges arise. News of his return spread quickly through Hong Kong's underground fighting circles. Bruce Lee was back, the man who had gone to America, the man who had trained with figures like Chuck Norris and James Coburn, the man who claimed to have created a superior fighting system. For some, it was admiration. For others, it was an unforgivable provocation. Among those who heard the rumors was a man named Chung Wei. He wasn't famous. He didn't appear in magazines. He didn't chase cameras. But in the damp alleys and dusty rooftops of Kowloon, his name was spoken with both respect and fear. Chung Wei was a master of Choi Li Fut, a brutal, direct, and devastating style. He had fought in countless underground matches. No rules, no referees, no second chances. He had never lost. Chung had heard about Jeet Kune Do. He had heard Bruce Lee call many traditional styles rigid, slow, and outdated. To him, that wasn't philosophy. It was an insult, a disrespect to generations of masters, an arrogance that, in his world, could only be corrected one way: with a fight. One Tuesday afternoon, without any announcement and without asking permission, Chung Wei walked through the gates of the Golden Harvest Studio complex. He brought no escort, no credentials, no intention of leaving without getting what he came for. He moved through the hallways, ignored the confused security guards, and walked with steady purpose until he reached Stage 3, where Bruce Lee was rehearsing fight sequences for his next movie. When Chung Wei appeared in the doorway, the entire studio seemed to hold its breath. Conversations died, movement stopped. Even the constant hum of the equipment seemed to fade. He was a big man, close to 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders and a compact, powerful torso. His hands, hardened by years of iron palm training, looked more like weapons than limbs. His face showed no anger, no rush, only a disturbing calm, the look of someone used to imposing his will through violence. Bruce was in the middle of explaining a transition of strikes to his stunt team when he felt the shift in the air. He looked up. The other martial artists in the room instinctively stepped back. They recognized that presence, the presence of a man who had not come to watch or learn. He had come to measure. "Bruce Lee," Chung Wei said in Cantonese, breaking the silence, "I've heard a lot about you, about your new path, your better path." Bruce turned fully toward him. His face remained calm, but his eyes were alert. "I don't think we've met," Bruce replied. Chung took a step forward. "No, but I know men like you. You go to America, learn a few new moves, and come back thinking you're above the traditions that raised you, above the masters who gave their entire lives to perfecting their arts." A wave of tension swept across the set. Bruce took a slow breath. "I respect all martial arts," he said. "Jeet Kune Do isn't about being superior. It's about being honest with what actually works in real combat." Chung tilted his head and smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then show me what works," he said. "Here, now. No movie cameras, no choreography, no illusions, just you and me." He paused for a moment. "Unless the great Bruce Lee only knows how to fight in front of a screen." The words hung in the air like a drawn blade. Bruce studied him for several long seconds. He could have called security. He could have ended it before it began. He could have walked away. He didn't. "All right," Bruce said finally. "But it will be done properly, with witnesses and with rules." Chung let out a short, dry laugh. "I don't need rules. But if that helps you sleep better, fine." From the production booth, Raymond Chow had watched the entire scene. He understood immediately that this was no longer a discussion. It was the beginning of something that could not be stopped. If this fight was going to happen, it had to be recorded. He leaned toward an experienced cameraman and spoke quietly. "Roll everything, no matter what happens." In less than 20 minutes, Stage 3 stopped being a film set. It became an improvised arena. Technicians, stuntmen, producers, and actors formed a wide circle around the cleared area. No one joked, no one smiled. Bruce took off his shirt. His body wasn't big or bulky. It wasn't built to impress visually. It was built to perform. Compact, defined muscles, tight as steel cables. He did a short warm-up. Fluid movements. Absolute economy. Every gesture had purpose. Chung Wei, on the other hand, stood motionless. Arms crossed, back straight, eyes fixed on Bruce. He didn't need to warm up. He didn't need to prove anything. Raymond Chow stepped forward. "This is not a street fight," he said. "There are conditions." Chung spat on the floor. "I came for a real fight." "And you'll get one," Bruce replied. "No attacks to the eyes, throat, or groin. When someone yields, it ends." "I won't yield," Chung said. Bruce held his gaze. "Then it ends when one of us can no longer continue." A second of silence. Chung nodded. Raymond raised his hand. "Both men enter this of their own free will. The cameras are rolling." He lowered his hand slowly. "Begin." For 3 long seconds, neither man moved. The circle of witnesses stood completely still, as if the air itself had turned solid. Bruce stood relaxed, shoulders low, hands floating lightly at chest height. He didn't look like a man about to fight. He looked like a man ready to listen. Chung Wei, on the other hand, took a classic Choi Lee foot stance, wide base, hips turned, fists ready to unleash violence. Then, without warning, he exploded forward. A straight, heavy punch designed to end the fight in the first second. Bruce was no longer there. He slid just to the side. The blow cut through the air inches from his face. Before anyone could react, Chung spun his hips and threw a brutal hook. Bruce leaned back by centimeters. A murmur ran through the circle. "Stand still and fight!" Chung roared. Bruce didn't answer with words. Chung attacked again, cascading punches, low kicks, elbows looking for openings. Nothing landed cleanly. Bruce moved like water, stepping in and out of range with small shifts, minimal slides, almost invisible angle changes. After several seconds, Bruce counterattacked. A straight, crisp, compact punch landed on Chung's jaw. It didn't knock him down, but it made him step back. The murmur turned into quiet shock. Chung touched his jaw slowly. "So, you can hit," he said. "Good. Now we have a real fight." His expression changed. The calm turned into fury. He charged like an avalanche, Descending fists, knee strikes, kicks meant to break. Bruce blocked, deflected, and absorbed impacts using a fluid mix of Wing Chun, Western boxing, fencing, and free movement, all fused into one idea: Jeet Kune Do. One of Chung's hammer-like blows slammed into Bruce's forearm. The sound was sharp, a hit that would have broken bone on most men. Bruce clenched his jaw but didn't retreat. They kept circling, sweat running down their torsos, breathing growing heavier. "You're fast," Chung admitted between gasps, "but speed isn't everything." Bruce held his gaze. "Neither is power. Are you ready to understand why I created Jeet Kune Do?" Chung spun and launched a spinning kick toward Bruce's ribs. Bruce blocked it with his forearm and in the same motion answered with a direct side kick to Chung's supporting leg. Chung lost balance for just an instant. It was enough. Bruce moved like lightning. A punch to the solar plexus, a palm to the chest, a short hook to the ribs, a straight fist to the jaw, all in less than 2 seconds. Chung staggered backward. For the first time, doubt crossed his face. Bruce took a step forward. "This is Jeet Kune Do," he said calmly. "It's not a style. It's what works in this moment." Hurt in his pride, Chung launched a desperate takedown. He crashed into Bruce, pushing him against the wall. Bruce dropped his center of gravity, hooked Chung's leg, and used the bigger man's own momentum to spin. Both men went to the ground. Bruce ended up on top with total control. "Yield," Bruce said. "Never." Bruce placed his open hand on Chung's throat. He didn't squeeze. He just held it there. "I don't want to hurt you more. Yield with honor." Chung looked into Bruce's eyes. The hatred was gone. Only understanding remained. "I yield." Bruce removed his hand, stood up, and helped Chung to his feet. For a second, the studio stayed silent. Then it erupted in applause. Later that evening, the two men sat facing each other with ice packs on their hands and forearms. The studio had emptied out. Only a few lights remained on. Chung spoke quietly. "Today I learned that there can be more than one path to the truth." Bruce nodded slowly. "Fighting isn't about dominating. It's about understanding." Chung Wei returned to his school not long after. His students noticed the change immediately, not in his techniques, but in the way he taught. He became less rigid and more open. He listened more. He questioned more. He demanded less blind obedience and more real understanding. He never spoke publicly about that fight. For him, it wasn't a defeat. It was a revelation. Years later, in 1973, when Bruce Lee died suddenly, Chung Wei traveled quietly to attend the funeral. He didn't seek attention. He didn't give interviews. He simply bowed his head in front of the coffin, a simple gesture of respect. Meanwhile, Raymond Chow had given a final order that same night. "Seal the footage." "The world isn't ready for this truth," he said. "Bruce Lee is human." He paused. "People aren't prepared to see their legends bleed." That night, Bruce sat alone in his dressing room. He stared at his reflection in the mirror, looking at his bruised hands. His knuckles were swollen. The skin was red and raw. He opened and closed them slowly, as if trying to understand what they had done and what they could still do. The fight had lasted less than 5 minutes, but it left a deep mark, not just on his body, but on how he saw himself. It confirmed something Bruce had already sensed, but now felt with brutal clarity. The path he had chosen was right, not perfect, not finished, but alive, always evolving. Decades later, the sealed footage was finally discovered in the archives. When it was released, millions of people around the world saw something they had never witnessed before. They didn't see a character. They didn't see a myth. They didn't see an invincible hero. They saw Bruce Lee fighting for real. They saw a man. And in seeing that, many understood something essential. Legends are not weakened by their humanity. They are defined by it. The story of that fight in 1967 isn't really about who won or who lost. It's about two warriors who pushed each other to the edge and came out transformed. Bruce Lee continued his journey. He poured everything he had into his films, his training, and his philosophy. He never stopped evolving. The fight with Chung Wei reminded him, in the most honest way possible, that real growth comes from facing challenges that test everything you believe. Chung Wei carried the lesson for the rest of his life. He taught with more openness. He respected the old traditions but no longer treated them as the only truth. He became a better teacher, and in doing so, honoured the spirit of martial arts more deeply than ever before. Because those cameras were rolling that day, we now have something rare, proof of Bruce Lee as a human being. Not an untouchable legend, not a movie character, a man with limits, with pain, with determination, and with incredible skill. When the footage finally came to light decades later, people saw something powerful. They saw a smaller man using intelligence, timing, and efficiency against raw power and tradition. They saw respect in the middle of combat. They saw two fighters who, despite their differences, recognized greatness in each other by the end. The real lesson from that humid afternoon in Hong Kong isn't about victory in a fight. It's about the courage to test yourself against someone who doubts you. It's about staying true to your path, even when others try to pull you back. It's about understanding that greatness isn't born from perfection. It's born from discipline, sacrifice, and the constant search to become better. Bruce Lee dedicated every fibre of his being to that search. He showed the world what one person can achieve when they refuse to accept limits, whether those limits come from others or from themselves. If this story reminded you that true greatness comes from discipline, sacrifice, and the endless drive to improve yourself, then this kind of storytelling is for you. Subscribe now, turn on the bell, and join us for every story that reveals the human behind the legend. Because here, we don't just talk about idols. We talk about what you can become too. See you in the next one.